Hello, you're listening to a very special episode of Popcorn Pals where we sit down with the writer-director of The Exorcism, Joshua John Miller. I'm Timmy Fland, movie buff, and this is Popcorn Pals, a popcorn podcast with Leigh and Tim spin-off. Thank you for joining me. Now, in The Exorcism, troubled actor Anthony Miller begins to unravel while shooting a supernatural horror film. His estranged daughter Leigh wonders if he's slipping back into his past addictions or if there's something more sinister at play. The Exorcism is directed by Joshua John Miller, from a screenplay by Miller and M.A. Fortin. It stars Australia's Russell Crowe, Ryan Simpkins, another Aussie, Sam Worthington, Chloe Bailey, Adam Goldberg, and David Hyde Pierce. A Los Angeles native, Joshua John Miller is an actor, writer, and director. With his life partner M.A. Fortin, he co-created the hit Netflix series Queen of the South and co-wrote and produced Sony's critically acclaimed The Final Girls. He made his acting debut at the age of 8 in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and was the lead in cult classics River's Edge and Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark. So it goes without saying that Miller has a very strong connection to the horror genre, both in front of and behind the scenes. But wait, there's more. His film The Exorcism is a movie within a movie about a troubled actor who begins to unravel while shooting a horror film. Now, the movie they are making is a remake of the 1973 Oscar-winning classic, The Exorcist. The Exorcist starred Jason Miller as the priest, who is in fact the director's father. That's right. So given Miller's personal connection, The Exorcist acts as a point of reference for The Exorcism. Are you with me? The tale of supernatural demonic possession is as frightening today as it was 50 years ago when it was released. In October of 2023, Time Out magazine rated The Exorcist as the #1 horror film of all time. Not to be overlooked are the many accolades it garnered, including 10 Academy Award nominations, of which it won 2. Although initially hesitant about doing a possession film, Miller and his partner and co-writer M.D. Fortin came up with this emotional meditation on grief and intertwined that through this demonic possession film. And then they added the clever meta aspect to it. So in our chat, Miller reveals if he was tempted to tinker with his film, having made it some 5 years ago. We're talking pre-COVID here. What his multi-layered film is trying to say about redemption and forgiveness and the importance of queerness in the story, and so much more. So let's take a listen.
All kinds of messed up stuff happened when they were making movies like The Omen or The Exorcist.
Hello, Joshua. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Where are you?
I am in Sydney, Australia.
Oh, I love Sydney. Can they fly me there for this interview? Come on.
Why not? I'll speak to your people after this.
Please.
So The Exorcism is a meta take on The Exorcist, but there are so many other layers to your film. Can you tell us a bit more about what else is going on beneath the surface?
I think there's a lot going on. There's so many things. The obvious, love letter to my dad, love letter to horror, love letter to The Exorcist, sexual traumas, Catholic damage, Hollywood as a hellscape. All these sort of metaphors are in the movie, I think, in some ways. And there's probably even more subterranean themes going on that I haven't even begun to analyze, because I probably should talk about it with an analyst as opposed to Tim and put that on. I don't want to, put that on you. But I think ultimately there's no one answer. And I think you hope that people see the movie and have their own interpretation of it.
Yeah, and resonate with other certain particular layers of it that speak to them. Now, one of the layers that I want to talk to you about, so look, actor Tony Miller, played by our Russell Crowe, he's seeking redemption, he's seeking purpose, and he's given a second chance. Now, cancel culture has kind of exploded since you wrote and made the film all those years ago, pre-COVID. Have you approached his character differently if you wrote it today?
That's a very interesting question. I, for one, do not ascribe the kind of mob mentality of cancel culture. And I really worry about the censorship inherent in cancel culture and about freedom of speech and about open dialogues about things. So if all we do is only hear our own opinions reverberated back to us or mirrored back to us, then we don't learn anything about the world.
Mm.
And this idea that there are not flawed people in the world who create art, so we can't separate the artist from their flaws, is also a fool's errand to me. And weirdly, like a weird McCarthyism, because I think creative people are, by the way, I'm not justifying any bad behavior. What I mean to say is specifically, I like to address the work with the artist, and I don't really necessarily always need to see it in the context of their personal life. So I don't really think about those things when I'm writing, and I don't think Mark does per se. I don't think Anthony Miller did anything that reprehensible that we'd have to address in this. But keep in mind, when we wrote this movie and we're making it, it very much was our response to watching Trump rise to power and going, wow, white straight men are fucking losing their minds. What the fuck has happened?
Yeah.
Where did the switch get fucking like, where's the lever? What happened? And kind of seeing like people even in our own families kind of like, it was just, I felt like Ryan in the movie running for my life in a way. And I think in many ways we wanted to say, okay, well, we're not going to make a conventional exorcism movie. Let's make a movie about a guy possessed, being saved by two women, two lesbian women.
Yeah, subverting what you would naturally expect from the genre.
Not just it was about subverting it, but it was also hopefully trying to say something about men need to deal with their traumas. Otherwise, they're going to kill us all.
Yes, quite the statement indeed. Now, as a queer couple, Josh, you and co-writer Mark Fortin have incorporated a kind of queer discovery subplot in two of your characters. Why was this an important character and story layer to incorporate into the film for you?
I want to see myself as much out there as possible.
Yeah.
And for other people to see representation so they can feel seen, right? But it's about the Catholic Church, which has so vilified people in my community. So it's like, fuck you, we're here. And we're the ones doing the exorcism now. It's like, double fuck you. So there you go. I don't know if I could say that on your podcast, sorry, but.
Oh, you absolutely can, trust me. I can go for it.
So it was sort of like wanting to be as irreverent as we could. Not for irreverence sake, but to just flip the bird to the people that have oppressed us.
Absolutely. Now, you filmed this some 5 years ago, and I imagine it could have been quite tempting for you to continue to like tinker with the final product over the years. Did you, or was there a line in the sand to like lock it down and just wait for it to see the light of day, which we're lucky to have very soon?
I think there isn't a time when you ever feel it's done. And I woke up this morning, last night, I wanted to re-edit the whole last third. I was like, could I change it before it comes out? Could I do this? Like that? I mean, you never are done, ever. And this movie particularly was really challenging because there's a lot of elements to thread very carefully. And you're also working within a studio system. And then the distribution company allowed us to go back and recut some stuff that we wanted. So we got lucky. But it's very hard to thread that needle, especially with all these different elements that you're even referring to. The personal, the meta, the drama, the horror.
Do you remember how old you were when you watched the original film for the first time, The Exorcist, which starred your father, Jason Miller, for our listeners who aren't aware of that?
I don't know how old I was, but I was definitely not old enough to go. I was definitely not a teenager yet. And I was probably 8, 9, I don't know, something like that. And it was playing on TV.
Right.
So it was obviously heavily edited. And I remember it was on this little weird small TV that my grandmother had. I guess she was babysitting me and I was at her house and it was like one of those like a rolling cart or something. And I just remember feeling the way I guess some boys feel like when they look at Playboy for the first time or some kind of porn magazine. It felt like I was looking at something pornographic, dangerous.
Yeah.
Impressive, too soon for my very young eyes. And of course that made it all the more fascinating, right? Because
totally
bad, you want more of it, right?
Yeah.
It was cool and strange. And also has become one of my favorite movies. And I say that with any bias.
Now, in wrapping up, Joshua, thank you so much for your time. It's obviously seems only natural that you would make this movie given your connection to and knowledge of The Exorcist. But on the other hand, were there reasons not to do it or things about it that made you think twice?
You know, ooh, it's a cursed movie. Bad things will happen.
Yeah.
A lot of bad things happen. But that's life. That's not because I made this movie. I mean, And you know what? If so, oh well. You know, that cliche, write what you know, tell the story that only you can tell. I mean, you know, in many ways, this was something that I had authority over. I had ownership of. So it just felt right. And you're always taking a risk when you're making something. You're always betting the house. You're always making that kind of gamble. And you just have to go with it and be unflinching and just throw yourself at it.
Yeah, trust your gut. And I bet you're relieved that it's being shared into the world very, very soon. Congratulations. And thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Tim.
When it happens, run.
There simply wasn't enough time to delve into all the cursed things that happened on both his film and The Exorcist, but I loved him recounting the first time he remembers seeing it, and I was shocked at how young he was. Fantastic. We have many more compelling conversations with filmmakers and stars in the works, so be sure to subscribe, follow, and check in for more content just like this, friends. We just love bringing it to you. Well, we hope you enjoyed this chat with the writer-director of The Exorcism, Joshua John Miller. You can check out The Exorcism in Australian cinemas from June 13. And as always, friends, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. If you enjoy our episodes, head over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe. While you're there, we would love you to rate us and leave a review. You can also find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Alexa, and where all good podcasts are found.